She looked me dead in the eyes and said the reception hall only has room for people who actually matter to her future. And that's when I realized 3 years meant nothing but a placeholder. Hey friends, please subscribe and turn on notifications, like this video, and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you. It's all thanks to you. My name is Graham, and at 38 years old, I thought I had a pretty good handle on life. I worked as a distribution coordinator for a regional freight company based out of Minneapolis. Not glamorous, but it paid well, and I was good at it. Numbers, logistics, timing, those things made sense to me. People were harder, but I thought I had figured out Vanessa. We had been together for 3 years and 4 months. I remember the exact count because I used to think it mattered. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party at a bowling alley in Edina. She was 32 then, a marketing assistant at a mid-sized advertising firm. She laughed at my jokes, asked questions about my work like she actually cared, and didn't look at her phone once during our first conversation. That felt rare. That felt real. By the time autumn rolled around this past year, we were living together in a 2-bedroom apartment in the uptown neighborhood. The lease was in both our names, split 50-50. We had a joint savings account for household expenses, groceries, utilities, and a vacation fund we never seemed to use. I paid the internet and streaming subscriptions. She covered the parking spot rental. It was all very organized, very equitable. I thought that meant we were partners. The week everything changed started on a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. Late October, the trees had already dropped most of their leaves, and there was that particular chill in the air that tells you Minnesota winter is coming whether you're ready or not. I got home from work around 6:15, same as always. Vanessa was already there, which was unusual. She typically worked late on Tuesdays because that was when her team had their weekly status meetings. She was in the bedroom with the door half closed. I could hear hangers sliding on the closet rod. When I pushed the door open, she was holding up 2 different dresses against herself in front of the mirror, a dark green one and a burgundy one. Both were dresses I had never seen before. "Hey," I said. "New clothes." She barely glanced at me. "Oh, yeah. Had some extra room on the card this month." I didn't ask which card. We each had our own personal credit cards in addition to the joint account. That was her business. But something about her energy felt off. She seemed distracted, but also somehow more alive than she had been in weeks. There was a brightness in her eyes that I realized, with an uncomfortable jolt I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. "What's the occasion?" I asked. "Just want to look nice," she said. She settled on the burgundy dress and hung the green one back up. "Is that a crime?" "Of course not. I was just curious." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Curiosity killed the cat, Graham. That phrase stuck with me. It was such an odd thing to say. We didn't talk like that to each other. Or at least, we never used to. The rest of that week passed with small, strange moments. She started taking her phone into the bathroom when she showered. She began closing her laptop whenever I walked into the room. She went out for drinks with coworkers on Thursday night and didn't get home until almost midnight. I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep, when she slipped under the covers smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was being paranoid. 3 years together. We were talking about the future. I had been saving for a ring. I had already made a deposit. That's the detail that matters here, so let me be clear about it. 6 weeks earlier, I had put down a $1,200 deposit on an engagement ring at a jeweler in the North Loop. It was a family-owned shop, very reputable, and they had a layaway program. The full ring was going to be $4,800. I had been paying it off in installments, and I was scheduled to make the final payment and pick up the ring on November 15th. I had a receipt for every payment, all in a folder on my personal laptop, along with email confirmations from the jeweler. I was going to propose on Thanksgiving. Her parents were coming to visit, and I had already coordinated with her mother about the timing. Everything was planned. Everything was organized. That Saturday, everything fell apart. It was late morning. I was at the kitchen table with my coffee, going through some work emails on my tablet. Vanessa came out of the bedroom dressed in the burgundy dress, full makeup, hair done up in a way she usually only bothered with for weddings or formal work events. She was putting on earrings, dangly silver ones I didn't recognize. "You look nice," I said. "Where are you headed?" She picked up her purse from the counter and checked her reflection in the microwave door. "Brunch." "With who?" There was a pause. Just a fraction of a second too long. Derek, she said. The name hit me like a cold splash of water. Derek was her ex-boyfriend. They had dated for 2 years before me, broken up badly, and as far as I knew, hadn't spoken in at least 18 months. She had told me once that he was emotionally manipulative, and that leaving him was the best decision she ever made. Derek, I repeated. Your ex Derek? We reconnected, she said, like she was telling me she had run into a former classmate at the grocery store. He reached out a few weeks ago. We've been texting. He's in a much better place now, and honestly, I think I needed closure. Closure, I said. And you're getting that over brunch. In that dress. She finally looked at me directly. There was something hard in her expression, something almost challenging. Graham, I'm allowed to have friends. He's not a friend. He's your ex. He's someone I have history with. And honestly, I don't need your permission. I set my coffee cup down carefully. I never said you did. But I think I deserve to know when my girlfriend of 3 years is meeting up with an ex-boyfriend she described as manipulative. That's when she said it. The thing I will never forget. She tilted her head slightly, like she was looking at something mildly disappointing. Graham, Derek is helping me plan something important. Something about my future. And I need people around me who actually bring energy and excitement to my life. The reception hall only has room for people who actually matter to my future. I stared at her. What reception hall? I asked. She smiled. It was the kind of smile you give someone when you know something they don't. I've been thinking a lot about what I want my life to look like, she said. And I realized I've been settling. Derek understands ambition. He gets the lifestyle I want. You. She gestured vaguely at me, at the apartment, at everything. This is fine. But fine isn't enough anymore. She picked up her keys. I'll be back this evening. Don't wait up. The door closed behind her, and I sat there in the quiet kitchen listening to the hum of the refrigerator. For about 5 minutes, I didn't move. I just processed. The reception hall. The future. The implication that she was planning something significant with her ex-boyfriend, something that involved a reception hall, and that I was explicitly not part of it. Then something shifted inside me. It wasn't anger, or at least, not the explosive kind. It was more like a cold clarity. Like when you're looking at a spreadsheet and suddenly the formula error becomes obvious. Everything clicked into place. The new dresses. The secrecy. The cologne on her clothes. The phone call she took in the other room. She had already made her decision. She was just too cowardly to say it directly. She wanted me to figure it out and do the hard work for her. Or maybe she wanted to keep me around as a backup while she tested the waters with Derek. Either way, I was done being managed. I got up from the table and went to my laptop. First, I opened the folder with the ring receipts. I found the jeweler's contact information and composed a careful email. I explained that due to unforeseen personal circumstances, I needed to cancel my order and request a refund of my deposit according to their stated policy. Their policy, which I had read carefully before signing anything, allowed for a full refund of deposits if canceled more than 30 days before the final payment date. I was within that window. The email went out at 11:47 a.m. I saved a copy to my personal drive. Then I started taking stock of the apartment. The lease was in both our names, but it had a clause, Section 14(b), that allowed either party to terminate their portion of the tenancy with 30 days written notice, provided the remaining party agreed to assume full responsibility for the rent or find a replacement tenant. I had read that lease very carefully when we signed it. Vanessa had not. She had skimmed it and complained about the length. I drafted a formal notice of my intent to vacate, citing Section 14(b). I saved it but didn't send it yet. I wanted to have my next steps in order first. I spent the next 2 hours going through the apartment with a notepad. I listed everything that was clearly mine, purchased before the relationship or bought with my own money with receipts I could document. My clothes, my books, my laptop and electronics, my kitchen equipment. I had brought the stand mixer and the good knife set when I moved in, my grandmother's quilt that was folded at the foot of the bed, and my toolbox. Everything else, the furniture we had bought together with the joint account, the decorations she had picked out, I would leave. I wasn't interested in fighting over a coffee table. At 2:15 p.m., I got an email back from the jeweler. They confirmed receipt of my cancellation request and said the refund would be processed within 7 to 10 business days. The deposit would be returned to the credit card I had used for payment. I printed that email and put it in a folder. At 3 p.m., I called my friend Terrence. He and I had worked together at the freight company for 6 years, and he had a pickup truck. I asked if he was free to help me move some things the following day. He asked if everything was okay. I told him I would explain later. He said he'd be there by noon. At 4:30 p.m., I called my mother. She lived in Rochester, about 90 minutes south, in the house where I grew up. My old bedroom had been converted into a sewing room years ago, but she had a pull-out couch in the basement and had always told me the door was open if I needed it. I told her I might need to stay for a few weeks while I figured out my next steps. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "The couch is yours, sweetheart. I'll put fresh sheets on it." By the time Vanessa came home that evening, I was sitting on the couch reading a book. I had already packed 2 boxes of essentials and put them in the hall closet where she wouldn't notice them. She walked in looking flushed and happy. Her lipstick was slightly smeared. She didn't even try to hide it. "Good brunch?" I asked without looking up. She paused, like she was trying to gauge my mood. "It was fine." "Great." She stood there for a moment longer, clearly expecting me to say something else, to ask questions, to demand explanations. When I didn't, she went into the bedroom and closed the door. The next morning was Sunday. I got up early, before she was awake, and quietly moved my 2 pre-packed boxes to the front door. When Terrence arrived at noon, Vanessa was still in bed. She had stayed up late the night before, texting someone and smiling at her phone. Terrence helped me load my things into his truck in 3 trips. We worked efficiently, without conversation. It took less than 2 hours to remove everything that was clearly mine from the apartment. The stand mixer, the knife set, my books, my clothes, my grandmother's quilt, my toiletries, my laptop, my external drives, my work documents. I left the furniture. I left the dishes we had bought together. I left the picture frames on the walls and the throw pillows on the couch. I wasn't trying to hurt her or leave her with nothing. I was simply extracting myself from a situation that no longer worked. Before I left, I placed 2 documents on the kitchen counter. The first was my 30-day notice of intent to vacate, citing Section 14(b) of our lease. I had signed and dated it. The second was a printout of our joint account statement showing the current balance, about $2,000, along with a handwritten note explaining that I was withdrawing my half, exactly $1,000, and that she could have the rest to cover her portion of upcoming bills. The note included my calculation of how the utilities broke down and a reminder that the internet service was in my name, so I would be canceling it at the end of the billing cycle. She would need to set up her own account. I took one last look at the apartment. 3 years. It was strange how little physical evidence remained of my presence. A few nail holes in the wall where I had hung things. A worn spot on the carpet near my side of the bed. That was it. I closed the door and locked it with my key. Then I got in Terrence's truck and we drove to Rochester. The calls started that evening. The first one came at 6:23 p.m. It was from Vanessa's number. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 45 seconds of confusion. "Graham, what the hell? Where are all your things? What is this letter? Call me back right now." I did not call back. The second call came at 7:15 p.m. Same confusion, but now with an edge of anger. "This is insane. You can't just leave without talking to me. What is your problem?" The third call came at 9:30 p.m. By this point, she had clearly processed what was happening, because her tone had changed completely. "Okay, Graham, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we please just talk about this? I don't know what you think is going on, but you're blowing this way out of proportion. Derek is just a friend. I told you that. Please call me. I'm worried about you." I saved all the voicemails. I saved the text messages that followed, 16 of them over the next 3 hours, ranging from "please talk to me" to "you're being really immature" to "I can't believe you're doing this over nothing." I did not respond to any of them. The next morning, Monday, I sent a brief text message. It said, "I saw the situation clearly. My decision is final. Please do not contact me further. I wish you well." Then I blocked her number. I knew she would find other ways to reach out. People always do. The email came on Tuesday to my personal email address. The subject line was "Please read important." The message was long, almost 800 words. It cycled through multiple emotional registers. She started by saying she was devastated and didn't understand how I could throw away 3 years over one brunch. She insisted that nothing physical had happened with Derek, that they were just reconnecting as friends, and that I had completely overreacted. Then she shifted to blame. She said I had always been emotionally distant and impossible to read. She said my obsession with logistics and plans made her feel suffocated. She said maybe if I had been more present in the relationship, she wouldn't have needed to seek connection elsewhere. Then she got angry. She called me a coward for leaving while she was asleep. She said I had humiliated her by taking my things without warning. She demanded that I come back and have a real conversation like an adult. Finally, she got sad. She said she missed me. She said she was scared. She said the apartment felt empty without me and she didn't know how she was going to afford the rent on her own. I read the email once. I saved it to a folder. I did not respond. On Wednesday, her mother called my mother. My mom told me about it over dinner. Vanessa's mother, apparently, had been told a very different version of events. Something about me abandoning Vanessa during a difficult time and refusing to communicate. She wanted to know if there was anything she could do to help us work through this. My mom, bless her, had simply said, "I think that's between Graham and Vanessa. I trust my son to make the right decision for himself." That was the end of that conversation. On Thursday, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. It was Vanessa's friend Madison, someone I had met a few times at parties. She spoke in a careful, diplomatic tone. "Hey Graham, it's Madison. I know things are really hard right now, and I'm not trying to take sides, but Vanessa is a mess. She's barely eating, she's been crying for days, and she really wants to understand what happened. I think she deserves a conversation, don't you? Just something to give her closure. She can't move on if she doesn't know why." Closure. The same word Vanessa had used about Derek. I did not call Madison back. I did not owe anyone closure. Vanessa knew exactly why I left. She had told me herself. I wasn't someone who mattered to her future. That was all the explanation either of us needed. The following week, I started looking for apartments in Rochester. I found a one-bedroom in a quiet complex near downtown, available December 1st. The rent was reasonable, the lease was in my name only, and there was no one to consult about the decision. I signed the papers on a Friday afternoon. That same week, I learned through the grapevine, a mutual friend who still occasionally texted me, that things with Derek were complicated. Apparently, Derek had given Vanessa the impression that they were going to get back together, maybe even get engaged, which explained the reception hall comment. But now that Vanessa was actually available, Derek seemed to be losing interest. He had started taking longer to respond to her texts. He had canceled their last two planned hangouts. He was dealing with some stuff, he said. He needed space. I felt nothing when I heard this. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just a tired kind of recognition. People show you who they are. Vanessa had shown me. Derek was showing her. These were facts, not opportunities for gloating. November became December. The refund from the jeweler had come through. $1,200 back on my credit card, exactly as promised. I used part of it to buy a new mattress for my Rochester apartment. Something firm, good for my back. I was sleeping better than I had in months. I started going to the gym again. I reconnected with some old friends from college who lived in the Twin Cities. I went to a Vikings game with Terrence. They lost, but the nachos were good, and it felt like a normal Sunday for the first time in a long while. In mid-December, I heard that Vanessa had to break her lease early because she couldn't afford the apartment on her own. Apparently, there was a penalty, and she had to move back in with her parents in Shakopee. She was commuting an hour each way to her job, and she was reportedly miserable. Again, I felt nothing. This was simply the consequence of her choices. I had left her with a clear path: take over the lease, find a roommate, or move. She had done none of those things proactively. She had waited, probably hoping I would come back, until the situation became untenable. That was her decision, not mine. Derek, as far as I knew, had fully ghosted her by then. 3 months passed. Winter turned to late winter turned to that muddy, gray early spring that Minnesota is famous for. I settled into my new routine. Work was busy but manageable. I started taking a woodworking class at a community center on Saturday mornings, something I had always wanted to try but never made time for. I wasn't great at it, but I liked the focus it required. You couldn't think about anything else when you were trying to cut a dovetail joint. One Saturday in late March, I stopped at a coffee shop after class. It was a place I had never been before, a small independent spot near the river with good reviews and excellent cinnamon rolls. I was standing in line, sawdust probably still in my hair, when I heard my name. Graham. I turned. Vanessa was sitting at a corner table with an open laptop and a half-empty mug. She looked different, thinner, tired, her hair longer than she used to wear it. She was staring at me like I was a ghost. "Hello, Vanessa," I said. She stood up, knocking her knee on the table. "Oh my God, I can't believe. What are you doing here?" "Getting coffee," I said. "I live nearby now." "In Rochester?" She seemed genuinely shocked. "Since when?" "Since December." "I didn't. No one told me." There wasn't any reason they would. She stood there awkwardly, clearly wanting to say more but uncertain how to begin. The line moved forward, and I stepped with it. "Graham, wait. Can we talk? Just for a minute." I looked at her. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not just physically, but somehow diminished. The confidence, the challenging edge that had been in her eyes that last Saturday morning, it was gone. "There isn't anything to talk about," I said. I kept my voice calm and even. "We made our choices. I've moved on." "But I've changed," she said quickly. "I've had a lot of time to think, and I know I messed up. It was a mistake. A huge mistake. I was confused, and I took you for granted, and I see that now. I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. And I miss you. I miss what we had." The line moved again. I was almost at the counter. "I'm glad you're working on yourself," I said. "That's important. But what we had is over. It's been over since the morning you told me I didn't matter to your future. I didn't mean it like. You meant it exactly like you said it. And that's okay. You were right. I wasn't part of your future. And now you're not part of mine. That's just how it is." I reached the counter. I ordered a medium coffee, black, and a cinnamon roll. I paid with my card, left a tip, and waited for my order. Vanessa stood a few feet away, watching me. She wasn't crying, but her eyes were wet. "So that's it," she said. "You just don't feel anything?" I picked up my coffee and the bag with my cinnamon roll. "I feel a lot of things," I said. "But none of them change anything. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. I genuinely hope things work out for you." I walked out of the coffee shop and into the gray March morning. The air was cold, but there was a hint of warmth underneath, the kind that promises spring is coming eventually, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. I drove back to my apartment. I ate my cinnamon roll. It was excellent. I spent the rest of the afternoon working on a small wooden box I was making. A jewelry box, actually, though I had no one to give it to. It didn't matter. I was making it because I wanted to make something. That was enough. That evening, I got a long text message from an unknown number. It was from Vanessa, obviously, using a different phone or an app. The message said she was devastated by our conversation and begged me to reconsider. She said she would do anything to prove she had changed. She asked if we could at least meet for dinner and try to remember why we fell in love. I read it once. Then I blocked the number. Some doors, once closed, stay closed. That's not cruelty. That's just self-respect. I spent 3 years building something with someone who saw me as a placeholder, a backup plan, someone who could be discarded the moment something shinier came along. I deserved better than that. And more importantly, I believed I deserved better than that. That belief was something I had to find again after Vanessa tried to take it from me. I found it, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it again. That's my story. If you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you're in the middle of something like this right now, just remember, your peace is worth more than any relationship that makes you feel like you don't matter. Trust your gut, protect your boundaries, and don't be afraid to walk away when someone shows you who they really are.